Hello everyone, and welcome to another Fatal Rose Creations tutorial. I know your girl's been gone through a minute, life's been crazy, so I thought I'd come back with a quick little tutorial. As you know, for my folks that render their Sims in Blender, it is an ever-changing program, and while I still do most of my meshing and a lot of my work in Blender 3.6, I thought I'd make a tutorial for the girlies and guys out there that are using Blender 4.3.2. So today we are going to go over how to render your sim in Blender 4.3.2. First things I'd like to point out are some simple setting changes that you can make that can possibly improve your render time. If you go to Edit and Preferences and then go to System, you should see this box up here that says Cycle Render Devices. Now, Blender is set up to initially just pull off of your CPU, your computer processor, when you're trying to render. If you have an advanced graphics card, even if you don't think you do, you should go check this setting to see if you can enable either CUDA, optics, or HIP. HIP is for AMD cards, optics and CUDA are for NVIDIA, if I understand correctly. There is a Blender page that explains each setting in depth and will actually let you know based off your graphics card which one would be best for you to utilize. I will drop that link in the description. What enabling this, so initially you'll see the box like this. It won't have your GPU checked, your graphics card, and so you want to enable that, and what it does is give you the option to render based off of your graphics card, which for a lot of people will grossly speed up the time because typically your GPU is much faster than your CPU. This isn't the case for everybody. Again, I will share the information, read it at your own liberties, but if you have the ability to enable this box, a lot of times I've seen with friends that it does make a difference in their render times. It changed rendering for me completely when I learned it, so I wanted to share that with you. Once you have that enabled, you can go down here and enable autosave preferences or just click save preferences manually. Another thing while we still have this box is go to input, and if you are on a laptop or have a keyboard that doesn't have a numpad and you want to use the directional features of the numpad, you can go to input keyboard and check this little box, and then again we'll save it and I'll explain that in just a second. So another thing to change with that render setting property is once you enable that box, you will now be able to go while you're in cycles and change this from CPU to GPU compute. And when you do that, you'll get some different options too with denoising. And so I have mine on optics because that's what I'm using. And as I said before, you will notice that there is a different render time for the most part. So that's the point of changing that. And in addition, here are the numpad keys: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, if you didn't have a numpad and didn't have that enabled, if you tried to use just the 1 through 9 at the top of your keyboard, it would not do that. So that is why we checked that emulate numpad box. Alright, now that we have those settings set up, I'm going to show you from a blank space and appending in your scene and starting in the scene and bringing in your sim. I prefer to start in a scene and bring in your sim because if you append in a scene, you lose the scene settings. And most Blender scene creators should keep the settings specific to their Blender scene, and so negating them by appending them is kind of pointless. There are some creators that recommend that you append. I am not one of those, so I'll show you both ways. So what you're going to do is you're going to need to go into Game, into The Sims 4, dress up your sim in cast, save the sim, go into a lot and place them in a world, place them in an empty lot or a lot with house, it really doesn't matter, and save your game with them on a lot and then exit. Make sure you take note of their name so that they're easier to find. Then you're going to go into a program called The Sims 4 Ripper. I will drop the link in the description that will direct you to where to download it. Right now we are currently on 3.14.2.6. I like to keep a couple of the older versions just in case. So you'll see in my documents folder where I keep it, I have 2 different versions. And what will happen when you click download is you'll get a zip file. So you want to create a folder and unzip that file, and then it'll look like this. Then you're going to scroll all the way down and go to the Sims 4 Ripper and double click. Once Ripper has opened up, it should look like this. The first thing we're going to do is adjust our settings. So we want to go to this box here, and it usually is on this for default. We're going to change it to solid glass and mesh textures. We're also going to click this clean DAE box, and I like to change from standard to high quality. Those are really the only settings that you need to adjust. Right here, when you finally get your sim in, you can change between their cult forms that they have them. You can change their outfits, level of pregnancy, different things. I don't usually touch these unless I have multiple outfits I'm rendering. So now we're going to select the save file that has our sim. So I'm going to go to select and save. And then I'm going to look by, I usually do by last name or household name if I have multiple sims. So I do have a sim saved. Their last name is Ortiz. So I'm going to click her right there. Depending on your computer and the amount of CC and stuff on your sim, this can either take a little while or a long while. It just depends. Sometimes you will get errors if there's like issues with CC. Don't move your CC. So like say you save your sim and then for whatever reason you take the CC out of the game that they were wearing, it will not pop up. So don't move the CC either, and it'll give you errors. Now you notice her hair looks bad. It's because of the style of hair, but it'll look fine in Blender. So once you have her popped up, you can take a look, you can rotate, zoom around, check to make sure that everything looks fine. Sometimes there will be weird issues. I've had friends seen weird things when they have sliders and different things, so always give a quick peek. And then we're going to click DAE. Now I'm just going to save her somewhere. Another program that you're going to need is Andrew Sims 4 Studio. I will drop the link in the description for that. You're going to want to download. I always go with the open beta version because it works with the most recent version of the game. The community tested version is a few versions behind and may not have all the same features enabled. So I like to download this one. I've been using the beta version for 3 years and haven't had any issue. You're going to want to download that. And then you're also going to want to go get a pose. So Rose Lipa is a common creator that I like to use. So I'm just going to download a pose pack from her, get it there. Cool. Then we can open Sims 4 Studio. And we're going to go to My Projects and download, store that pose pack saved. And now we can go over to Clips and pick a pose. So I'm just going to get a random pose. And I'll save it wherever. And I'll get another one since we'll be doing this twice. And when you're exporting, like say you are rendering a child, make sure you change the rig. We're rendering a female and that's what it's at default, so that's why I didn't change it. Just want to take a few minutes from our tutorial to see, did you guys know that I sell Sims 4 merch? Well, I do. On top of some other things, my ultimate goal is to create clothing and jewelry and accessories that you can have in real life, that you can have in game. Although I'm still working on that aspect because Girlie's trying to learn how to sew some clothing and it's taking a while. But if you didn't already know that I have an Etsy store, please be sure to check it out. It's under Fatal Rose Creations. As always, we've got stickers, some clothing, some cups, some little things for the nerds and geeks out there to show their love for their game, and also some cool goth and kawaii things. So if you could give my Etsy store a quick check, that would be so awesome. Let's get back to the video. So while those are going, in order to bring in a sim, you're going to go to File, Import, Collada. Then you're going to go to wherever you saved that sim and bring her in. Alright. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here until the lines pop up with the 2 arrows and right click and click vertical split. And drag that over. And then I'm going to go to this box and change this to shader editor. Now I can see her in the world and I can see the shader, which once you go over to here and drop down to rig, you'll see she has her regular mesh and then her glass mesh. Glass meshes are usually like eyelashes, hair, things with transparency. If you make Maxis Match sims, there will be chances that you won't have a glass mesh, and that's totally fine. So if you import your sim, most of the time if this glass mesh isn't there and you set up the settings like I said, it's simply because your sim's not wearing anything that has a glass texture. So I'm going to just click on the first one, and you'll see over in the shader these boxes pop up. So I'm going to drop down my specular, turn down my IOR, grab my color here, and drop it there. Then I'm going to press Shift A, go down to shader, mix shader, drop it there. We're going to bring the BSDF down one and put the alpha into the FAC. Then we're going to go Shift A, shader, transparent BSDF, get that, boom, boom. Don't worry, I'm going to show you this like 4 times. Okay, so once we have that one, we can now go to the glass texture, and it's the same thing. Drop down specular, I like to turn this down, go from the color down here, plug it in there, press Shift A, grab a mix shader, drop it in between here, this one, this one, this one goes down to the bottom. The alpha from here goes to FAC. Shift A, shader, transparent BSDF, goes up here, and it goes in the middle right here. Once you have that done, we can now switch over here to a different preview. So this is like where you don't really see any of the textures, mostly just the mesh. This is where you kind of see the textures, but it's not all the way. And this is what you see as the full render preview. But as you can see, her hair isn't all messed up like I said. So now that we've got her shaded, we need to give her a pose. So I'm going to click on her pose, then up here, click pose mode. And then over here, I'm going to change from the shader viewpoint to nonlinear animation. So I just click this box up here. Alright, so now you see she's got dots on her. We're going to press A to highlight all of them, and then I to lock the lock-rot scale, which is location, rotation, and scale. Alright, now you should see something like this popped up. With this bottom bar highlighted, you want to delete the strip. So you're going to right-click and delete it. It deletes any animation that she may have going on. Alright, now that we've already exported our pose blend file, we can go to File, Append, go to where we exported those poses. So mine's right here. Click on the pose name, click on action, and then you should see the pose name here. We're going to double click that. Nothing changed. You want to make sure this is still orange. Press add, action, and the pose name. Now we can see that she's posed. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is bring in the sim. So we can go back into object mode. Not bring in the sim, bring in the scene. And I'm going to go to download a Blender scene. So this is my Patreon. This should be a smaller Blender scene. So I'm just going to download a Blender scene from wherever. And then go back to where my sim is posed. Go to File, Append, and I'm going to go look for that Blender scene that I just downloaded. So here it is. Double click it, and then we're going to go to Object, and all this stuff. We need all this stuff. So I'm going to highlight all of it. You can press A, and then highlight, and then just click Append. Now the reason I don't like doing this is because if the Blender scene is super huge, it may take a while. And also this particular Blender scene, so if we look at it in render mode, we can see it's all gray. I'm gonna File, Save As. To show you, so this is how it would look in render mode. So if I were to render right now, you see how dark it is and everything. If I open the scene as it's been saved, you see it has some different things here that didn't come up when we appended. So that's why I don't like appending the scenes. But I'm going to show it to you anyway. So I'm going to go back to where we were. So with that being said, I don't have any kind of world lighting, so I'm just going to actually plug a program that I use. I pay for a site called Blender Kit that gives you this add-on that you can just look up some things to use. If you pay, there are some free stuff. There is some more stuff that you can pay. It's all royalty free or CCO assets. So it's really nice for Blender creators as a helping tool. They have textures, models, materials, all different things, including HDRIs. It's also good for simmers because they do have some Blender scenes that you can download. Different stuff. It's just, it might not all be stuff that, you would want to use. But we're going to grab an HDRI. So I'm just going to go over here, and I just need something that lights up a little better than what we have. We'll go with this, doesn't matter. Okay, so now we've got some world lighting. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is position our camera. So I'm going to go over to output and change it to 1920 by 1920 so I get a square. And then I'm going to go to view. So you can either click at the side or you could press N to bring this box up. I'm going to go down to view and click camera to view. So now when I go in this mode, when I move my cursor, it's also going to move the camera. So I'm just going to back it out, adjust my camera, and then the render settings aren't set up because I appended the scene. So I'm going to change my samples to what I tend to render in. Now, the higher the samples, it will take longer. It will stress your computer out more. You got to play with it, see what your computer can handle, and just go from there. So we can click render our image at the top, and as you see, the picture is rendering, and it's all lit up and everything. Your person's posed, she's good to go. Once that render is complete, you should get something like this. Then you can click image, save as, and save your picture to wherever you'd like. Alright, now let's do this from starting in the scene. Alright, so here we are. We have it's another one of my scenes. It's an already set up scene. So if you start with open, as you can see, I've already got the windows set up for you. When you open this scene, the window's already set up for convenience. So we're just going to go to File, Import, Collada, and go get a sim. And we're just going to do the same thing. The only real difference is that the scene is already set up. So again, we'll click on that. The shader window is already up. Good for us. We can drop this down. Turn that down, color to IOR, Shift A, shader, mix shader, drop it down to the bottom, the alpha to FAC, transparent BSDF, in the middle, same thing, specular, IOR, color to IOR, shader, mix shader, in the middle, drop this down to the bottom, alpha to FAC, shader, transparent BSDF, put that in the middle, check her out in render, previews, we can move her up a little bit. Alright, then we're going to go into pose mode by clicking on pose mode, change this to non-linear, and then this one has a lot of stuff, so we just need to keep an eye. I drops down here. Delete strips. File. Append. We'll go get a pose. Add action strip. And there we go. Now, if you decide, say my sim was bigger and she wasn't quite fitting properly, or you didn't like something, you wanted to adjust a pose, while you're still in pose mode, you can turn this transform on so you can see, and let's say, I don't know, I wanted to move her wrist. I can click here and look for the bone, so I'm going to go with the hand bone, and I can adjust this So like she's got some long nails, so if I wanted to move them a little bit, I can adjust that. And then if I want to save the adjustment, let's say I want to make her eyebrows look a little more menacing too. I'll bring that down and give her like a sharp eyebrow. Cool. Say we want to save these changes, you just press A and I again and it'll save the changes. And then just like before, we can click this to see where our camera is. It's already set to view. We can adjust it, pose it. I'm going to switch to cycles. Check out the render samples, rendering at 100 samples. We can render it, and that's really all there is to it. If you feel like this render, so this render is a little bit dark. She's not really standing in a place that has the light set up into it. So if you wanted to add some lighting, I'm going to change this to the 3D viewpoint and then bring it over and change to view mode and go into this view so I can see what the render should look like. Then I'm going to press Shift A. Oh, in object mode, I'm going to press Shift A and go down and just grab an area light, and then I can move that and rotate it to kind of light her up differently. And so now we can see, just by adding that one little light, it's gonna light her up a bit better. Yeah, so now you can see, and you can see her sharp eyebrow is still there. It's a bit hard to tell that I've moved her hand because of the angle, but you can see the adjustments of the pose are still there and the render's done. So when it comes to rendering in Blender 4.3.2, that's all there is to it. Hope to see you guys in the next one.